first.
Depends.
Hi guys, happy Friday and welcome to Guild Chat. I'm your host Ruby and we're here with some of our devs to talk about the latest update to Guild Wars 2. So I will let you guys introduce yourselves and talk about what you do here and what you did for this last update.
Hi there, my name is Karl McLain. I am a game designer. I'm working on the skills and balance side of things, and for this update did a bunch of the reworks and balance changes to underwater skills.
I'm Jessica. I am a systems designer working with Karl and Irenio here. Spoilers. Stole your thunder. What do you think of that?
Right there.
Please don't leave.
And I primarily worked on the underwater reward loop, so the swim speed infusions, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I'm Irenio Calmon-Huang. I'm a systems designer. I worked, as Karl did, on a bunch of the underwater skill changes, as well as vetting some of the stuff that Jessica was doing with the underwater reward loop.
Awesome. All right, well, let's talk first about kind of the overall goals, about why we decided to go back and revisit underwater.
Well, underwater hadn't been touched in ages, so it was something that we frequently try and go back to update stuff that has not had a good pass to bring it up to speed. Like our design standards have changed over time. You can see this through like Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire. We've gotten better about designing many things, and if you don't revisit things, they lag significantly behind. And underwater was kind of one of those things that we felt we could really like update a significant amount by doing so.
It's kind of the natural design process for an MMO to try and keep everything up to date as much as you can. Right?
Yeah.
Because it's never done. You always go back, you look at something and think, well, you know, our standards have changed in the last few years. Let's try and bring that up to date and make it good with the current standards.
Yeah, we've been looking at underwater for quite some time and saying, is now the time? Can we do it now? Like and just say like, because as things come out, like the Heart of Thorns, Path of Fire, we're like, we have so much cool new tech here. We have, you know, this new functionality, and I'd love to be able to update this your combat underwater. And additionally, it was in the initial design of it, it was expected to be a little bit slower, and it was supposed to be, you know, because like you're underwater, you're in this 3D space. It's going to be, you know, underwater was like slow. It was going to be slow swinging, kind of doing a little bit less damage. And so that was sort of the initial design behind it. And looking back on it, we were like, it probably shouldn't be slower time to kill, or just have that.
Yeah, we tried to retain some of the kind of floaty feeling that you get underwater. You know, there's just water has resistance. It's super strong in doing so, and like. We wanted initially, with Guild Wars 2 launch, to have that kind of feeling of resistance in water, so things were slower and kind of felt a little floaty, to like call back to reality. Right. But in this case, some of that resistance and floatiness played into your time to kill, as Karl called out, your speed of movement and things like that, and that actively pushed against a lot of the feeling of Guild Wars 2 combat, where things are a bit more fast-paced, where you know what you do moment to moment matters significantly more. And so this was an opportunity to kind of bring those two pieces together, where the fast-pacedness of standard combat and underwater were out of alignment. So we tried to make underwater combat a bit more fast, a bit more furious.
Irenio. There have not been any puns in this room at all, and suddenly it's happening.
We just got to get our feet wet with the conversation.
There it comes.
You said you weren't gonna.
But then you called us out.
I was saving it for the camera. Oh. So thank you, chat, for starting the underwater puns before we went live, because we were watching and now we can't stop making them.
We're gonna have a great time.
Oh my God!
Now you're just taken from them, man.
Yep, that's exactly what they put.
Yeah, we're already out of our depths.
We thought it was the perfect time to dive right in.
All right, everybody got one. You can have another one in 10 minutes. How's that?
Timer started.
Synchronize our watches.
We need like a little pun counter underneath each of our nameplates.
Mark, write that down.
Oh.
Pun counter. Okay. So one of the things you were saying was we're looking to see. Your face is amazing. Very serious right now. Okay. one of the things you're talking about, I can't look at you right now, is that we were going back and asking, is now the time, is now the time? And I mean, when Guild Wars 2 launched, underwater combat was great. The first time I saw it, I didn't work here yet, but I remember thinking, it's one of the games that finally got it right. But time has also passed, the tech has gotten better, we can do more, and your time is also very limited. I told you to turn your phone off. So it's nice that it was finally time, and we were finally able to find the time and find the bandwidth to get in there and do that. I want to talk a little bit about some specific things, like the new underwater legend.
Well, I have to go look at Irenio for that one.
Okay. Well, the underwater legend is Jalus. It's the legendary dwarf. It was one that we'd wanted to include for a long time because it felt really limited if you were a revenant and you were underwater and you only had 2 legends to choose from. When you have 2 legends you can use at a time, there's no choice there. So we wanted to add some real choice there for quite some time, and we had been unable to do so in part for various reasons. We have to be pretty judicious with regards to art resources and the like, and Jalus was one of the natural options to go with because it is one of the first legends that you learn. So we tried to include him. In particular, the thing that we were held up by was inspiring reinforcement, because that's a ground-targeted ability, and it's kind of hard to do that when there's no ground.
Right. Goes all the way to the ocean floor.
Yeah. So we had to rework the skills a little bit in order to make it so that they can actually be used underwater. Yeah. It helped that Vengeful Hammers was one of the abilities that wouldn't have worked before because they used to fire up multiple missiles around you, and those were missiles and they would stick to the ground. And again, same issue. So if you ever tried to fire it, we tried this in testing a few times. If you tried to use the ability and you were underwater, you would have the missiles appear, and then they would just like float down below you all the way to the sea bottom and stick down there, even though you were up here. So
yeah, there were all sorts of issues at first with getting that legend underwater. Yeah.
But,
I would love to hear more because these are fun for me.
Would you say it added a lot of depth to the combat?
It has not been 10 minutes.
No, I would not.
We hope it makes a big splash.
I would say it made things feel very fluid.
Tell me about more things that happened in testing.
You know, I would have loved if you turned on Jalus, you just sunk to the bottom of the sea.
We considered some stuff like that. Of like you were just constantly sinking a little bit if you started channeling Jalus. But yeah. So
about fun stuff. We've experimented with a lot of different trying to get the legends to work underwater, and I would say that each of them has their own unique issues. As with many other skills in the game that we haven't yet been able to transition to underwater. A lot of them are that we have they're on land skills. They are ground decals, I would say. Like the effects they have to play on a surface.
Yeah, they're ground images.
So anything that plays kind of on the surface of something, since we're in water, we're trying to transition it to water. There's no surface for it to play on other than directly below where it would be, and it really makes for a disconnect in combat. And so, that's one of those things we have to take the time. We have to rework the effects. We have to rework the abilities themselves usually.
Yeah.
And so that was some of the things we were able to get through on this underwater pass. That was some of the effort that was made is to rework some effects and get them usable underwater.
Trying to make a significant chunk of that, in particular with Jalus, was that inspiring reinforcement, in addition to the actual visual effect being something that plays on the ground, having to fix that, we had to make it so that it felt like you were still firing the same skill. It still has much the same feeling. You're granting a bunch of stability to your allies. You're doing some damage to your enemies in the process. And this is something that on land is in a path in front of you. So you're setting up this road for people to gain that stability. Underwater, there's no roads, and you're working in a 3D space where a path on a 2D space works just fine. So we had to make this into a bubble instead, and it's going to be around you. This way there's this extra tactical component of, hey, look, I want to be near my allies, or my allies want to cluster near me in order to get these benefits. So changing things to an underwater space where you go from 2D to 3D allows us to include those kinds of elements.
I mean, a really common question I hear is like, why don't you just take X skill and make it work underwater?
Yeah, it's jealous, but wet.
Yeah, and the answer, if you gather from this, is because it would probably look terrible in addition to playing badly. And one of the things that's important to us that I hope you guys have noticed with our underwater combat is we try to make things actually look correct for that environment.
Yeah.
It's interesting to note how much more is involved under the hood than just take the skill, stick it underwater, it's fine. It's the opposite of fine. It is very much not fine.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about, the missiles just would spin around and oh, they're gone. Look at that.
Yeah,
there's some instances where like you'll be underwater and you'll activate them. These are in things we've tested, and then like the missiles will be like above you on the surface, and like they go directly above you.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's not right either.
If you were close enough to ground level, then instead of it going down to the sea floor, it would go up to the water's surface and treat that as though it were a surface. It was kind of awkward. We run into things like that frequently, like a bunch of other stuff that we have to change that people generally don't think about when they're like, yeah, I would love to see this ability used underwater. Oftentimes, we would too. It's that we have to deal with things like there are underwater animations. We can't play just the same animations that we do on land because then it looks like you're standing on ground, and it looks incredibly awkward. So we have to time and pair up and underwater animations that we have with on-land animations so that they keep a similar kind of feeling. If we don't have those kinds of animations, then we have to tweak things pretty heavily to get them to work, and sometimes we can't get them to work without feeling really, really pared down.
It almost sounds
something we want to provide.
It almost sounds like you're having to rebuild every skill you want to take underwater with just a little guideline to start from on land to the non-programmer.
Yeah. That is accurate. Some of them we're lucky with, and they can translate directly. But if there's any trouble at all in translating one of them, there's usually a lot of trouble.
Yeah, there's no halfway measures.
Basically.
So did that kind of hold true with the trident? Again, just stick a trident in my hand and it's fine.
So the Revenant wielding a trident, which is its new underwater weapon, which is also baseline to any Revenant who loads up. We had to like get some code support to be like, hey, can they use a trident? And then like we had to go and basically give them a whole new set of a whole new set of skills, and sort of you got Chun here tearing it up.
Jeez, Chun.
And then like we were able to, luckily with this weapon set, since we knew we're going to do a complete underwater pass and we're going to make brand new skills. It was really cool. We were able to get lots of effects support from our art team. We were able to, take a lot of the ideas we've had for the Revenant and kind of put a lot of that technology into it. And there's some other stuff we were able to do is like actually utilize the 3D space of underwater.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the most ambitious weapons that we've added to the game.
Really?
In that, it utilizes the 3D space, as Karl points out. It also has a lot more projectile interplay. Like, you can do some cooler things with it. We set up combos with it, and probably the thing that I enjoyed the most while we were developing it was the design to have the weapon do something different based upon what legend you were channeling.
Yeah.
It gives you a significant amount of versatility on the fly. It means you're really dynamic in what you're doing from moment to moment. Because if you swap legends, suddenly the left half of your skills does something slightly different. They keep the same feeling, but they achieve their goals in a different way.
Can you give some examples?
The Trident's 2 skill, 3 skill, and 4 skill, based on whether you're, as Shiro, applying vulnerability, creating a different type of combo field, or or if you're Jealous, applying weakness, and again, applying a combo field that, in this case, is light. that is more defensive. It's like weakness being applied to your enemies reduces damage. That's kind of in Jalus's theme, whereas applying vulnerability as Shiro increases the damage that you deal. That's more his kit. The combos that you play off of the combo fields that you create with the Force skill can be used really, really heavily with Karl's 5 skill.
Yeah, the 5 skill there. You want to hover over that one just for a second there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the torrential mists.
No, I'm murdering the ocean.
Yes.
Yep.
Destroy it all. So this was one that, you know, it fires a bunch of projectiles, and I'm really happy about this one that we were actually able to fire the missiles from different vectors toward and make it sort of do a rotation around the character. And so if you're firing, there's a big champion there, isn't there?
Solo it, you can do it.
You can use that skill.
I love the skill because it looks so anime.
Yeah, like you just fire the missiles completely around your character, and each one of them has a % chance to inflict the condition. What we're talking about with the Rift of Pain is the 3 skill. That one changes the combo field that it creates based on which legend you're currently in. Like Shiro, it's lightning. It's going to actually inflict any projectile you launch through it is going to inflict more vulnerability. Yeah. Malix is going to lifesteal because Malix needs more. The demon stance needs more health to them because they're usually under condition duress. And then Jalus is like got that light field. And he's going to heal
condition cleansing.
Cleanse conditions off allies. And so and we want to make sure there was plenty of combo potential with the projectiles that are going on with this weapon itself.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the skill reworks underwater that you were happiest with? I can't tell if you're like,
first.
oh no,
okay,
or if you're very excited.
I've got a bunch of them.
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Yeah, exactly as Jessica said. Bits of both. So we went through a significant bit of trial and tribulation in order to get some of them working in ways that felt smoother. One of the things that felt a little bit clunky early on with underwater skills was the engineers kits. They had several toggle abilities, and that felt not particularly great in a 3D space, because if you have to, in particular the 2 skill for them fires a series of mines, and those would just pass through foes kind of antithetically, and then detonate when you actually hit the button again, which is was, as an example, changed so that as soon as it just reached an enemy, it would blow up, like mines would do.
I'm pretty happy about that with a lot of those skills that had detonates that were kind of difficult to understand. Of like, when do I really want to blow this thing up? I have to like tilt my camera, figure out where it's at, or be really reactionary. Like as soon as it hits opponent, then I have to hit the skill. It was required more to get that. It required a lot more than I think we wanted in order to get that full payout. Yeah. So we ended up removing a lot of those detonates type abilities.
Turns out judging distance in 3D space is actually kind of hard.
It can be. In this space in particular,
It makes me feel good to hear you say that, because that was an underwater thing that I struggled with and never did really feel great with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, well, clearly I'm terrible. So thank you for compensating for
our pleasure.
Yes.
Yeah. On top of the engineer stuff, I like a lot of the stuff that came out of that one.
Yeah.
There's a couple of functionalities that came out of the underwater stuff that I feel like we wouldn't really do this many other places, but it felt really good to do underwater, which was there are a few abilities that increase as you spend more time charging your enemy. The end result like builds and builds and builds, and eventually you get to like, if you hit something at like maximum range for like I think the example of this one would be the Elementalist's Water Trident. It's the I think it's just I'm not sure what exactly the skill is called right now. It's blanking on me. I'm sorry.
My number. It's like Trident 4.
It's like
4.
4.
Spear 5.
Water
It's
5.
4 is what I call it.
like if you get to the end of that, you have basically one of the highest single strike multipliers in the game that you can possibly have.
Yeah, I think Ranger and Necromancer also got similar treatment in that, like, they each have movement-based abilities that scale with the amount of distance that you travel. You know, you're building up momentum, and so when you actually strike them, the damage is huge. Speaking of which, I think the one that I liked the most of those was the Necromancer one, which isn't actually just when you strike them, it's purely the amount of damage you do, but while you're traveling towards them, every moment that you're traveling, you're unleashing a small piranha that's going to collide with them when you finally reach them. And so it's like you get there, you smack them, and then this barrage of piranhas just devours them.
For that one, I like that. I like that particular weapon because we took the number 1 skill. Yeah. It's called Crimson Tide, and we turned it from like this magic attack single thing of which was not really readable, and it couldn't be very powerful because it was like this long distance instant attack, and we turned it into a projectile.
Yes.
And then from that projectile, we were able to say, like, this is really cool to like see it like floating toward your enemies and like kind of nibbling on them.
Yeah.
And so all of the abilities,
give them little switches.
Yeah. All of the abilities on that weapon, we said we like how this functions, you know, and like I want to see how it will. We could put this particular skill and make that the focus of all of these other abilities. Yeah. And so each ability that you fire on that trident will release some little nibbling piranhas.
It kind of bound the whole weapon together.
Release some crimson tide toward your enemies, and like eventually, like you're just gonna overwhelm them with a bunch of little hits all the time.
I don't know. It sounds fishy to me.
All right. I'll allow it.
It's been 10 minutes.
It's just too good. Well, since you're talking, I want to talk about underwater
I've been known
rewards.
to do that.
I want to talk about rewards, especially since we were watching like things just pour in while Chun was playing. Oh, that was unintentional.
Nice one.
Sure.
Don't sigh at me. Everybody else got to do it. But let's talk about the rewards loop, because there's good stuff now.
So the rewards loop was... It came about from the fact that we know you guys. You're not gonna we could rework underwater combat to the end of our days and make it the best thing ever. But unless you get stuff, you're not gonna go underwater. So the reward loop was kind of made to address that, to make there be some benefit for actually exploring the water again. Because one of the things about our game is pretty much where everything is online. On land.
I know where a lot of things are online too.
Yeah, I know where too many things are online. But on land, there's not a lot of surprises left because you've explored pretty much everything. Underwater is a different story. I mean, just like in real life, for most people, the underwater regions are unexplored, other than like maybe the POIs for Map Complete. And we wanted to get people to actually go in and start exploring underwater again, which... For me, that is one of the core fantasies of the idea of like deep sea diving, just going to places that seem kind of alien to you. And with the underwater reward loop, we wanted something that would be something you really sink your teeth into, work at over time. So the natural thing that everybody wants to do is go fast, right? So that's where the idea of doing the underwater movement speed infusions came from. And it was a bit of a happy coincidence, but it also works well that the faster nature of movement underwater now, after you start getting a bunch of infusions, plays really well with the underwater skill changes. It makes the fighting underwater feel a lot more kinetic, which is kind of what we're going for, a more arcadey feel to underwater as opposed to the floaty feel that we started with.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what about, the underwater, the speed boost is awesome. Can we talk about the Rebreather?
The Rebreather...
Because I love it!
There's a few things I really love about the Rebreather. One is Rebreathers, the issue of them is most of them are only visible from the front of your face because they're a Rebreather. They go right here.
Yeah.
I do a Bane voice, but I can't do a Bane voice. I'm sorry. So the cool thing about that...
Patch it in later.
Please do. The cool thing about the bubble helm is you can see it 360. It's actually something that is completely visible and kind of fitting in with the fantasy of being underwater that you can see from behind yourself, from the perspective that most players will play at. It takes a while to get, not gonna lie, but again, we're going for rewards that you work towards over time, and I think we hit a really nice medium with the underwater content.
Yeah. And something that one of you had mentioned to me the other day was that we want players to have a reason and have good stuff to upgrade their underwater equipment, because mine is garbage, and I know I'm not the only one.
I think like
I'm running with greens underwater.
Every time I go underwater, it's like, oh yeah, underwater. Oh crap, my spear's basic.
Yes.
As soon as this came out, I immediately went and built a new trident for myself. I'm like, I will not be caught.
Yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah,
awesome.
I did. It's like full. I made sure it was like, okay, this is actually usable. It's has the sigils required, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I've been playing kind of a condition renegade, and this really helped. It fit it right in with my build.
Nice.
So I was pretty happy with that.
Cool. Yeah, we've done a not fabulous job in the past of rewarding you for underwater content, and again, this was kind of a way to update that and bring it up to our good design specs, by making this entire set of content a lot more available. Like similar to Karl, I had basically my level up rewards as some of my underwater gear, and this has made me go and revisit it. And now I'm kind of excited every time I go and do my daily crate kill, get my key, and get some more infusions, because I know that I'm actually going to be able to use those.
Yeah.
And they're cumulative. It's a long-term goal that I now have.
I think we should also remind people that this movement speed is additive.
Oh yes.
To what is currently available.
Yeah, it stacks with like swiftness and everything else, because we didn't want to like negate like your ability to grant yourself swiftness or anything like that. So
gotta go fast.
Yeah.
Underwater.
So this is gotta go fast underwater.
Irenio, you mentioned keys. Let's talk about the keys and the underwater reward chests a little bit and how those work.
So you had a thing to say.
Nope. I had a thing to say. It was Jessica can totally cover this one.
Well, all right then. So the cool thing about the Sunken treasure chest is, at least for me, it really plays towards what I feel the fantasies behind diving and treasure hunting really involve. Like if you think about it, like most treasure in real life is actually in the sea, because nations will transport their goods via ship, and ships tend to sink. Think about next time you're on a ship.
Oh no!
But I'm just kidding. Ships don't sink that much these days. That much.
So many people cancel cruises right
now. But yeah, I mean, who doesn't love the idea of finding treasure, like of finding that pirate treasure totally. At the bottom of the sea? And when I've been working on like reward stuff, I want to try and make every aspect of it kind of fit in with this overall fantasy to reinforce itself. And that's why you have characters like Dive Master Astora, who will give you her crazy plan for like finding all this sunken treasure that no one's looking for, because everyone's looking for treasure on land, which is not where actual treasure is. Spoilers, most time.
It's not true. I have like 50 of
unless
those
you're in
little
the silver waste.
Yes, also the silver waste. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Also, the loop is in some ways designed not to be like super intrusive. Like there's a daily to get a key, and then you can get keys through just general like roll drops. You might find keys more often off of crate, and it's all intended to be this process that you work at over time, not something that you rush at. I say this, but I know how you guys are. It's not really a process we've intended for you to just rush out and like knock out in like 5 days or something. God help you if you manage to do that.
Guess what?
Yeah.
Yep.
You're doing it wrong.
The thing is, we all play games. We all play our game, and we know, because sometimes we might do it too.
That's true. There's also the freebooter title. We should mention that just in passing.
Yeah, there's a title for doing all of the... I mean, if you looked at the achievement panel, you've probably seen it, but if you do all of the underwater chests and you accomplish that achievement, you'll get the nice freebooter title.
Yeah.
Really?
and then all the chests unlock, and you can do them all again to get more loot. And you can repeat that meta achievement as many times, like a whole bunch of times. I think it was worth like what, 50 achievement points in total possible.
It's 50.
You get like 5 every time you do it.
It's set up like that to discourage some of the more, let's say, aberrant playstyles where like people will camp a chest or something, because this way you do actually have to do all the chests before you can do the same chest. So the alternative would be a situation where you've got someone that is just sitting with a key waiting for that chest over and over and over, and you know,
instead of playing the game.
It's not fun.
We know how you guys are.
Again, it's through familiarity, and
we love you guys.
Possibly a few of the behaviors on our own.
We are you guys.
Yeah.
Yes, we
know
guys.
exactly what. I know
of
exactly what I would do if that were an option. I would do exactly that.
The call is coming from inside the house.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that was kind of what I wanted to cover. Is there anything else that you guys would like to address? The floor is yours.
We haven't had a pun in at least like 5 minutes.
Would you say the sea floor is ours? That was awful.
That's really
you can
bad.
have that too. Yes, please
really
go to the
bad.
sea floor.
Out.
No, wait, you're still attached to the microphone.
Oh.
I mean, not to make waves, but like we have standards here for our puns.
And our standards start at the pun level. So.
I'm really having this incredible sinking feeling.
I am too. Tell me your favorite thing about this update.
Well, for one,
not just you. Everybody's going to have to do it.
The puns have been fun, but
yes.
My favorite thing I think would be is still the fact that we get to go back and revisit something and make it better and get to use all of our knowledge of like the things we've learned over the years to implement it.
That's good.
I mean, speaking of that, I certainly hope that our decisions in this latest update reflects the fact that we've been developing this game for a long time. We have picked up on the things you guys like and don't like for the most part.
What?
Shocker. My favorite part about Underwater is just I like the idea of the underwater environment as a mysterious place that you don't know where everything is. And even though like water has been part of the game since launch, I still feel for a lot of people it's been an untapped experience, and being able to try and motivate players to. What? I don't know.
Yeah, no, you punned.
Did I pun?
Yes.
What did I say?
Untapped.
That's barely a pun.
We're kind of reaching at this point, but we're really fishing for the puns.
Oh my god.
Thank you. I'm not even a little bit sorry. Carry on.
Wow. So, I don't even remember what I was
She
talking
said,
about.
no, I hate you all and I'm
I'm
leaving.
so flustered right now. But yeah, no. The idea that we have previously only gotten you to explore, like, say, maybe 75% of the game's landmass, and now, like, with the motivation to go back underwater, we get to explore that other 25%. Completely arbitrary numbers. Don't quote me on that.
Too late.
That's exciting to me.
Yeah.
I'm also kind of excited about the player versus player potential in terms of like World vs. World, because these skills have gone live for World vs. World as well. And what's that?
You stole the thing that I was most excited
All
for.
right, you explain your excitement as well.
Well, now you choose another.
I mean, no, I'm going to choose that one.
Yeah.
He's committed.
We're going to double up. Yeah, but the sheer amount of possibilities for underwater combat in World vs. World. I remember back in the day when I was running World v. World, there were certain avenues of attack for certain keeps in certain maps where underwater combat felt bad. So people who were on land would just be plinking into water to take people out because your on-land skills are so much more useful. And now it's going to be potentially the reverse, where you're going to be just trying to jump into water to potentially wreck people who are on land, because that is an option. The underwater combat is also going to be potentially much bigger and more en masse. Like, you've got a plethora of options there suddenly.
I have a theory in that I think the first person in water.
Yeah.
If you're doing like an engagement and you're like, I'm in trouble, I got to retreat. You dive down into the water, you might have yourself an advantage.
Oh yeah.
If they try to follow you in, because they're not going to be immediately, they're not going to have their stuff immediately available to them.
Well, if you've got like plus 20 swim speed, and they've got
That's true
none,
too.
you're also going to probably be able to make a dash out of there.
Pretty big advantage. Yeah. Also, so those people who actually play more underwater during this fresh period, they're going to have an advantage against people who haven't touched underwater combat in quite some time. Like, this is one of those times where, oh, look, I've actually got some experience. Everyone's suddenly a fresh, player again. So those who get on with this are going to have a huge tactical advantage.
Yeah.
So get in there, you guys. The water's fine. I'm sorry. Now I'm a little bit sorry.
Now we're just trying to find puns.
Yeah, I regret that. Not much, but that's one of the things that I do.
Yeah. As you should. Thank you for admitting it.
Thank you guys for your time. I know, as always, everybody's really busy, so I appreciate you coming here, hanging out with us, and hanging out with them for a little bit.
It's great fun.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, guys. We do not have a show next week, but we will be back in 2 weeks to talk to some of the devs behind the Episode 2 trailer. So I will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you guys again.